couple questions.
Okay.
One was that I was wondering, did you guys put like a phone or something in a really safe to record it from wherever it was in space or something? Or like, we don't know how you could record it without flying all the way up there.
Yeah. So we had a number of instruments in that box that we borrowed from people. So we were really nervous about sending it up to space. One was a GoPro camera. So that was donated by a parent at the school to the project. And so that's how we recorded all that video. And I don't know if I mentioned it in the video that you watched, but one of the things we learned from looking at the camera and looking at the instrument that was recording the altitude, we could hear the kids screaming from the launch at 4,000 feet above the ground. We could still hear the kids screaming. 2,000 feet above the ground. We could still hear them. So that was...
We did notice that. We were commenting on that. Yeah. How long you could hear them for.
It was crazy. So we also had in that box, we had a GPS tracker like you use when you're hiking. So it recorded the geographic position, and we had it set up so that it would report the position once a minute to a satellite, and then we could check on a website where it was. So it got a little confused when it got up so high, because the way that it calculated position like stopped working perfectly when it was that high off the ground, because it was designed for somebody who's on the ground. And so it's almost like it didn't believe its own calculation that it was at 83,000 feet. So, yeah.
Another one of my questions was, when did you start tinkering school? Like, why did you want to start it?
So I started it in 2005, 15 years ago this summer. And I started it because I was feeling like my perception of what kids were capable of was based on my childhood and the kinds of things that my brother and I did when we were your age. And a lot of that was, you know, we lived in a very small town in California in the countryside, so not in a city. And we got to spend a lot of time on our own, wandering around in the woods and climbing down to beaches and all of that, and without any adult supervision. And it wasn't because our parents were bad parents, it's because in the 1960s, that was pretty normal. We thought that kids could look out for themselves. And that idea that a parent always has to know exactly where a child is, that evolved over the last 30 years. So to the point where as a civilization, really, because we're not the only country who thinks this way, we're a little bit nervous about, you know, dropping you off at the edge of the woods and saying, I'll pick you up here at dinner time, be back here.
Definitely, this generation of kids has a different experience than you had growing up.
Right.
And I feel like I was a bit later, and I had an interesting kind of two worlds where in my neighborhood at home, we kind of stayed close to home. But then when we went to the cottage, where I was like the third generation at the cottage, my parents kind of let me have more of what they had growing up. So we would get to go to the woods and be gone for 6 hours. We'd pack a lunch, you know. So I kind of had the benefit of both worlds. And then these kids, we've got to get them more of that.